Right. Okay, cool. So this session today, it probably will be less than an hour. We'll just rattle through what the funding is for and the grant details, how to apply, the decision-making process, and then there'll be lots of time at the end for questions. So yeah, we'll rattle through. So to give a bit of context to this, so in 2020, what is it now? 2021, we were awarded a 5-year grant from the Lotteries Climate Action Fund. So they've got a fund which is all about how communities across the UK can take action on climate change in different ways. And when, along with different partners in Tower Hamlets, applied to look at climate action through food, and also think about how the local food system could better serve communities in Tower Hamlets and how it could be more equitable, socially just. So thinking about good food being good, nutritious, culturally appropriate food being available to all. And so that's the kind of big picture of where the funding is from. So it's across 5 years. This is actually the end of year 3. So some projects were funded at the very start, but there was always the intention that more would come in, and the lottery have sort of delegated onwards grant making for more projects to when. So we're sort of administering the process, but the funding is from the lottery. So what's it for? I thought it'd just be really, really quickly, so a bit on the same page, look at like the sort of issues and background to what the programme as a whole is trying to address. So firstly, what we mean by the food system. I guess it's the whole web of activities that gets food from the farms to our forks and our plates, and then what happens afterwards with waste. So it could be how food is produced, how it's transported, cooking, eating, waste, what happens afterwards. So most of the climate impacts and carbon impacts are in that agriculture production bit, but also there's points along the whole chain too. And so we'll look at what that means for like a local context in a minute. But in terms of why the lottery were interested in this, is because food does have a big impact on climate change, and also climate change affects the food system as well. So you might have heard about like extreme weather events impacting people's crops and that kind of thing happening globally, and thinking about how unsustainable food production practices affects our ability to kind of undermines this global systems we rely on, I guess, to give ourselves nutritious, affordable food in the long term. And we know it's failing lots of people. I mean, in Tower Hamlets, there's lots of emergency food provision, I'm sure a lot of you know. So it's not meeting our needs, and people lack control, lots of control and power by corporations, private land ownership, those sorts of issues that really set the scene for why our whole food system needs a bit of a radical transformation. So I guess that's the big picture stuff. Hasina's going to talk a bit about what are the areas that we think projects might look at locally in terms of what we can do in a borough like Tower Hamlets. So, Hasina.
Hello, everyone. So just piggybacking off of what Ella said, where can we make a difference? So the Just Fact project is welcoming and looking forward to projects and ideas that think of or look at production. So increasing, growing or production of local or sustainable food. We have some examples on the website, so do feel free to have a look at some of the projects we're already running to give you a better idea of what some of those growing projects might be. I'm just going to pop over to the next slide. Elle, do you mind popping? Okay. So again, like Elle said, we're thinking about transport. Where does our food come from? How does it impact carbon CO2 emissions? And we're thinking about reducing food miles and thinking about how far has our food traveled. So increasing use of more sustainable transport and ways of getting food to our communities. There's consumption, considering the impact of the types of food we eat, how we eat that food, our relationship to that food. Increasing access to local or sustainable food. Is there a place that we can get our food from more locally? How do those projects enable that? And then energy associated with cooking and storing food. So, thinking about ideas and ways of sharing learnings and tips and tools of how to reduce and save energy to make things more efficient and climate friendly. And then waste. Reducing food waste, increasing sustainable processing of food waste. So thinking about composts and ways of doing that, thinking about Tower Hamlets and what systems are already set up. How can we make composting more accessible for our local community? Reducing plastic use and packaging, increasing the use of more sustainable packaging. Again, we've got a couple of projects that already do this, that are doing, making great impact, and they're, again, really great examples to look back on and think about ideas that anyone might have to add on to what we currently are working with. And I think, Elle,
Yeah.
do you want me to chat about this, or do you want to take over here?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Yep.
So broadly, the hub grant, so this is the up to 10k grants, are really about, I guess it's quite broad, but it's about bringing people together to learn and to share ideas and just feel like actually there is action we can take, and we can feel empowered to take some action around food. Building on what's already there in Tower Hamlets, like there's so much, as you all know, like richness and skills and knowledge that already exists. And also food being a way of celebrating culture, bringing people together, community, saving money, so many things around health, well-being, joy, friendship, that like food we think is just has a unique role in just doing so many things. So really looking at like projects that can think kind of holistically and imagine that the projects will probably take place in a place that's open to local community, like a building or community space. So that's why they're called community hub grants. So we'll go through the criteria now. So there's 5 criteria, and we'll sort of flip between me and Hasina. So do you want to take this one, Hasina?
Yes. So criteria 1 is create the space for conversations and learning together about food and climate issues. So it's a way of building a better connection to our food system and our climate. And these spaces are essentially for exchanging knowledge. We want to avoid telling people what to do. We want to be conscious of community histories, cultures, and that's where we want to create or encourage people to create spaces that are for everyone, feel inclusive. It could be learning together around a specific thing, food growing, what we eat, cooking, composting. The ideas can be really, really vast. So do get in touch with us as well if you have something and you're not sure, does this fit in? We're open and really welcome to hearing your idea and talking through it. It could be more general about where food comes from, where waste goes, global and local issues, food injustices. Again, the food and climate conversation is really vast. So feel free to share any ideas and things that you think come up and wonder whether it does fit into our criteria.
Cool. So the second one is about action. So there's this sort of learning, knowledge exchange, and then what's the doing bit. So it could be something like quite practical, skills-based within a project, like growing skills, cooking, composting, or it could be something that is produced or shared with others in response to conversations and that knowledge exchange. So it could be producing a film or an art exhibition or something like that. Or it could be a campaign or an action that pushes for wider change. So the action bit of this could again be quite broad, but is the response to kind of a learning phase, or a learning bit.
Criteria 3 is building on the cultural, experiential and practical knowledge and skills that already exist within Tower Hamlets. And if we're all based in Tower Hamlets, we know how rich of a borough this is and how many skills there are in that borough. We really want to, tap into that. So just reiterating that there's an abundance of wisdom and knowledge that already exists within Tower Hamlets. It could be there's people with lots of relevant practical skills living locally that you can involve. We've got several markets, we've got loads of different things that are happening in the borough. It could be activities to build on knowledge from our cultural traditions and practices, thinking about the backgrounds of the community, what kind of practices already exist, what types of food, what types of cultural celebrations. It could be that the project is informed by people's lived experiences. So again, this criteria is really about involving the community, thinking about how your project connects to local knowledge and local experiences.
Cool. And then the fourth one is thinking broadly about the benefits of food related projects, whether that's, it could be like a campaign project that's also about building confidence with public speaking, or like cooking workshops that are also thinking about health and well-being and how people can save money, like social connection, are things giving new skills or work experience. So just thinking a bit more broadly about kind of wider benefits.
And then criteria 5 is create a way for learning to be shared beyond the project with other people and organizations. What we do can be a resource or gift to others who are interested in doing something similar. This could be something like a toolkit or tips and tools again. Could be that people running the project reflect on what went well, what didn't go so well. It's always important to get that feedback. Could be a resource, how-to kit is created for others like the toolkit, or, there's examples again. Please do check out our resource page on Just Fact. There's loads of examples of what that might look like. And we, the Just Fact team, will support with passing that knowledge and learning on. We have our websites, we have an Instagram page, and we're at the beginning of starting a food podcast. So there'll be loads of ways of being able to share that learning beyond your project and the program.
Cool, thanks, Asina. So just to go through a few of the main grant details, you're going to do this bit.
So the funding size, projects for the Community Hubs grants can apply for anything between £1,000 and £10,000. So go wild. Total available is about £45,000. And how many projects we fund all depends on the number of applications we get. We've got a rough point of 4 to 5 projects, but that could be less, that could be more based on the application, could be less. The deadline has been extended to the 7th of November, 12 p.m. The duration may vary depending on the grant size. Anticipate majority of 6 to 18 months, spent and reporting on by August 2025. But again, if you have an idea and you want to talk that through in terms of length, if you've got a smaller pot of funding, it's short, it could be shorter. If it's larger, it could go on for longer than the stated duration. Who can apply? Tower Hamlets focused organizations and groups. Any individuals, unconstituted groups would have to be hosted by an organization. So if you are part of an organization and you want to apply, please do look at the criteria and see if you do meet it. And if you're an individual, maybe what would be really useful is to pair up with another organization that can support you receiving that funding. Again, we're always really open to have emails about kind of ideas and how you might not meet the criteria, and we'll be happy to help and understand how we can support you on that. Again, just so smaller projects. So if you were awarded £1,000, something that you could do is, for example, an Instagram campaign about plant-based diets, sharing local Tower Hamlets recipes, creating downloadable recipe cards. That's a kind of example that would allow for you to use like a smaller budget. Bigger projects, for example, what we've had is food growing program in local schools to support students, staff, parents to develop school gardens, creating a how-to guide, so sharing knowledge and learning about how to start growing. They're just a couple of our projects. And again, the Just Fact website and our projects will give you a sense of what we're already working with.
Cool. So a bit about the application process. So there's a form on the website you can download, and that's what's submitted along with a photo that you feel represents the project or the work. and that's the deadline, the 7th of November. And the project form covers the name. It could be something quite like composting project or something. It can be just saying what it is. Doesn't need a fancy name, but you can give it a fancy name if you want to. When and where it'll take place, thinking about why your project's needed. So what's the issue? What you're trying to do? Yeah, what activities will you do within your project? And how does it build on some of that knowledge and skills that already exist within Tower Hamlets that we talked about? And then there's a question on what you might produce to help others learn from your project as well. And then there's a table that looks at activities, objectives, and outcomes. Sometimes it can be a bit hard to know what to put in each bit of a table like this. So if you're not sure, ask us. But the activities are really kind of going through what specific things you would do. For example, we'll run workshops with parents and families at 3 primary schools to create 3 new school gardens, is the example. And then what will happen as a result? So 3 schools start growing fresh produce, 3 members of staff will know how to run a gardening club. So that's what happens. And then the outcomes are things like increased knowledge about where food comes from, increased skills around how to grow food, and kind of wider benefits as well. So you just kind of map those out a bit in the application form. And it doesn't have to be loads, it's just an opportunity to kind of map out key things, and often you'll have the same outcomes for like many different activities as well. So yeah, but any questions on that bit, I think that's sometimes the trickiest bit of the form. You can also just give us a call, give us a ring. And then organisational details. So yeah, this hopefully is quite straightforward. So if it's an individual, this would be the host organisation's details. Things like policies and insurance. Again, if you're not sure what's needed for your project, you can ask us, and you don't need everything in place by the point of applying. That can also come afterwards. We ask about people's experience. Because the intention is to fund a range of experience, people who are really experienced in delivering projects, maybe people for who it's quite new, or the topic's quite new, and you can also say what sort of support you might need. So the idea is that hopefully it's a supportive and not too intimidating a kind of process. There's also a fairly standard budget table, and you can, if you've got match funding from anywhere, so funding from any other source, you can add that into. And we do have program-wide events, and so do encourage people to put in some extra staffing days for coming along to things, about like half a day every 3 months, where we bring people together from across the whole program. So thinking about making sure that time is resourced to be part of that as well. And yeah, in terms of support, so there's a needs and offers some slides. Hasina will drop this into the chat, but it's just a way of if there's something that you've got an idea but you feel like you're missing a component and you need something. So say you're a school and you kind of want to run some cooking workshops, but you need to find a suitable chef, or like there's something you can offer maybe another group. It's a chance for you to just share amongst other people who are interested in applying some things you might need or might be able to offer, and chance to collaborate. There's one-to-one support for people who've not applied for a grant before, or don't have English as a second language, or English is a second language, sorry, or are neurodiverse, or any other additional support needs. So we can provide some extra support in the application process, and get in touch if that feels relevant to you. On the website, there's a detailed grant guidance documents, and also some FAQs, so questions that have come up in past webinars. So we ran around in spring. This is the final round, and we'll also, any questions that come up today, we'll add to that as well, so you can see what questions people ask. It might answer some of the questions you've got. And yeah, you can contact us at any time, and we'll try and get back with any on any additional questions you might have.
the exciting bit, part 3. How do we make our decisions? We've actually employed a really cool way of doing this, which we think is really important, and it is a collective community voting system. So what we will do at the beginning, once we've received your applications, is we will check that your project is eligible to receive the funding. Eligible projects will participate in collective voting at the end of November. So you'll be sent a summary of all the different projects, including your own. The window for voting will be 1 week. So people will be able to vote for their top 3 projects and provide each other with some project feedback. So the idea is that we want to ensure that the projects that we do receive applications from are suited to the community, are what the community want. They decide the projects that they feel there is a need for. So we, as the people providing the funding, don't make that decision. We pass that on to the local people. And then reviewing votes, we will review the votes and draw a line for this funding round. And then notifications, all unsuccessful and successful applicants will receive a notification via email within 6 weeks. We'll aim to inform applicants if their project has been successful in early December. And again, just to reiterate what I've just said, we believe that local people are best placed to understand what projects can have the most impact and will work for their community. It's also a way to hear about each other's ideas and activities. The only information that is shared for voting will be the project idea. So section 2 of the application, the total budget. A vote will also be given to members of the Blueprint Architect Group and existing project partners. So just to quickly explain, the Blueprint Architect Group are the research part of the Just Fact program. So they're local people who work or are connected to Tower Hamlets that are helping with the research element of our food system within the borough. So they have been kind of in and part of the program for a long time. So they, alongside the current existing project partners, will be part of that voting process.
Cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And welcome to Gemma and Carolina as well. Cool. Well, yeah, we rattled through that. And so I've got plenty of time for any questions now. Carolina and Gemma, we've also recorded the session, so we can share that with you.
Thank you.
If you want to watch back the first bit. But we've just went through some of the grant criteria, what the funding's for, and that kind of thing, and the application process. So does anyone have any questions? I don't know whether maybe we stop the recording here and then we can we'll make a note, maybe we'll type up any questions